violence against women and girls, sexual assault, sexual violence, and trafficking. Let's begin by taking a moment to understand some terms. Sexual violence is an umbrella term that includes a wide range of coercive sexual acts, including rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment, unwanted touching, sexual coercion, sex trafficking, female genital mutilation, child sexual abuse, child marriage, forced sterilization, sexual slavery, forced prostitution, forcing children to watch pornography, and forced pregnancy. Sexual violence occurs in every country during peacetime and in wartime. I'll define a few more specifically. The term sexual abuse is mainly used to describe sexually assaultive behavior towards children. Sexual abuse of a child is a criminal act, and all 50 states in the United States have laws that recognize that children are incapable of giving consent to a sex act. Rape. The FBI defines rape as penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus with any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person without the consent of the victim. When examining this FBI definition, we can see that it doesn't look like what most people think of as rape, which is this stranger who perpetrates violence by force. The definition says nothing about the relationship between the victim and the perpetrator, and it says nothing about force. It does talk about consent, or rather the lack of consent. Sexual assault. Rape and sexual assault have been used interchangeably, and this practice, although unintentional, can be confusing for a lot of people. Opposed to the specific criminal act of rape, the term sexual assault describes a range of criminal acts that are sexual in nature, from unwanted touching and kissing to rubbing and groping and forcing the victim to touch the perpetrator in certain ways. But sexual assault does overlap with rape because the term includes rape. Finally, sexual harassment. This is a broader term than sexual assault and encompasses 3 main categories. The first is sexual coercion, what we call quid pro quo harassment. The second is unwanted sexual attention, unwanted touching, hugging, stroking, kissing, pressure for dates, sexual behavior, etc. And the third and most common is gender harassment. And this is conduct that disparages people based on gender. It implies no sexual interest. Gender harassment can include crude sexual terms and images, for example, degrading comments about women's bodies. Having clarity on a few terms, let's understand some basic facts. We know that rape is the #1 most underreported crime. A World Health Organization multi-county study found that between 1 and 11.5 women say they have experienced sexual violence by someone other than a partner since the age of 15. About 20% of U.S. women have been raped during her lifetime, and 44% of women have experienced sexual violence other than rape during their lives. And while these numbers are staggering, it is even more staggering to understand that between 80 and 87% of sexual assaults committed on everyone, women, heterosexual, lesbian, bisexual, are perpetrated by someone known to the victim. So we can understand that rape is a global health issue for women. Survivors and victims of sexual assault suffer psychological, physiological, and behavioral consequences. There are chronic health problems. There's the possibility of pregnancy, sexually transmitted infections, and vulnerability to re-victimization. Many people and societal voices talk about the causes of rape, how women were dressed, that they were drunk, that they were home alone, that they were flirting, that they were behaving badly, that they opened their mouths. And yet, the only cause of rape, the absolute only cause of rape, is a rapist. It has often been said that rape isn't prohibited anywhere around the world. It is restricted. It is situational. There are many places and spaces where people's idea about rape and seduction overlap. Society's condonement of men's behavior to be aggressive and pursue, and women's expectation of saying no when she may want to have sex. There are many ways that we see normative rape as marital rape, ceremonial rape, raping of enemy women during times of war, raping of slaves. Almost every society has rules and norms about allowing men to violate women sexually under certain conditions. So in looking at those sexual assaults and rapes that are prohibited, what does that look like for conviction? If we estimate 100 rapes, approximately 31% are even reported to the police on a good day. Less than 6% lead to arrests. A little over 1% are referred to a prosecutor, that district attorney who has to go to court. 0.7% are convicted of a felony, and 0.6% are incarcerated and spend a single day in jail. As I stated earlier, at least 8 of 10 rapes are committed by someone you know. A woman is safer out in the middle of the street naked at midnight than she is in her own home, with people around her who she knows and or loves. And our society's attitudes about rape are quite twisted. There are these overlaps, as I mentioned, about seduction versus rape and how they are connected to each other. Images on television, movies, pornography, they all support these ideologies where women often, under conditions where they are coerced, where they are raped and sexually assaulted, will not even call it rape. And victim blaming is part of this rape mythology as well. We as society want to find out what she's done, how she has done something wrong. And part of it may come from the just world theory that says that the world is just. If I do things right, if I say my prayers, if I go to church, if I'm a good person, nothing bad will happen to me. So focusing that just world theory on the victim of sexual violence says that she must have done something wrong. Because if I believe that she is a good person, then those terrible things can happen to me as well. And so this mythology continues and perpetuates throughout society. And sexual abuse of children is prevalent worldwide. 40 to 60% of sexual assaults within families are against girls 15 years or younger. The majority of these are committed by father-like figures, with the uncle as the number one perpetrator. And it is not surprising that sexual abuse is a significant reason why girls run away from home. Human trafficking involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. An estimated 4 million girls and women are bought and sold annually every year into marriage, prostitution, or slavery. They are sex trafficked. In many poor countries, sometimes daughters are sacrificed in this way to pay a family debt. And of those approximately 4 million girls and women bought and sold annually, 45 to 50,000 are brought into the United States each year. It's important to note, in light or the darkness of all of this criminal and violent behavior, that there are actions around the world attempting to rectify and reduce this violence. That freedom from persecution is a human right. The United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or CEDAW, states that women will be equal before the law and have equal rights and responsibilities in marriage. Wonderfully, CEDAW has been ratified by 177 countries, but the United States is not one of them. There's legislation, the Violence Against Women Act. There are shelters for victims. Should there be shelters for victims? We have to begin to ask questions and change the conversation by changing our perceptions of what sexual violence is and what consent is, by taking personal responsibility and making a personal commitment to changing the world for the better.